Because Manju, you seem to have seen the entire spectrum from land rights to access to justice to governance. I mean, you name it. And not only in India, in Africa. And I'm sure you can clearly see where people like, Ishi and Gurmeet are coming from a position of strength already, right? And how there is no level playing field. And so how have you then put this into your program design and your monitoring and evaluation? It'd be wonderful to.
How did you create it?
Hello.
Thank you so much for the question.
Yeah.
First of all, I'd like to thank Seema for giving me the opportunity to be part of the panel. To answer your question, there are women who are already up there, have been fortunate enough to be born in families, where gender equity and gender equality is practiced. But then there are women who are not as fortunate. And it is heartbreaking to actually know that a majority of women come from that category. When you, through the programming, when you intend to empower such women, what we've been able to do is bring in cross-cutting elements into the programming. So even though the program would be about education, making sure that the girls complete at least their 12th grade, we know how government has. I want to weave it through what everybody said, so just bear with me. You can tell me how much time you're giving me so that I can tailor it within that.
Yeah, thanks, Manju. But Pallavi, you will have to really guide us on that because I'm so lost in what people are saying. So please let us know how much time Manju has. We all have already overshot. Seema, Pallavi,
Yes.
How long can we go? Another 5 minutes?
Yes.
Yes? Great.
Yes.
All 5 minutes.
So you want me to speak in 5 minutes about everything that I have seen across the sectors? I'll try. I will try. So we all know that there are policies and programs which are being implemented to ensure that girls go to school, right from midday meal to free education, to school dresses, to free books, to cycles in some schools. But then what happens to them once they are in the school? They're still being taught by teachers who come from the same society, which represents patriarchy. So then the environment is not so encouraging. It's also being managed by a principal who does not understand that there needs to be a separate toilet for girls. So once they get into menstruation, how do they manage themselves in the school environment? And, all these things. So then we encourage programs to factor in all these aspects as well to make it more holistic. And then also ensure that the parents are also involved because the girls get to, are, I wouldn't say forced, but they're made to believe that they would be more productive while they're at home and that they need to help their mother. So during harvest seasons, you'll see the attendance drop and more girls are spending more time in the fields trying to help their families harvest. Also, when somebody is unwell in the family, they are the caregivers who need to then make education secondary and then prioritize on that aspect as well. So for every reason, between a male child and a female child, you'll see that the female child would be pulled out of school more often. So the parents also need to be involved. There are times when things operate at a social level. So maybe the Panchayat Pradhan also needs to be involved to talk about gender inequality and why education is important, and also start working on re-enrollment of girls in school. Ministry of Women and Department of Women and Child Development is also, it has schemes that effectively work on reintroducing these girls who have dropped out of school back to school. So explaining to them how they could all work in the same geography in a convergent manner, in a complementary manner, and then, change lives of these girls who are there. So that's how one tries to program. It's difficult in the sense that everybody has their own action plans, work plans, and then getting all departments to sit together and then see how they will be able to align their work. It's not an easy job. So then we do look for people like Rakesh ji and others, who understand this entire gamut and then are able to guide his department and the other departments to actually converge. Convergence has been talked about in our policies. All our policies are quite rich, quite effective. It's the implementation that has a few gaps. So detailed guidelines have not been prepared on how will we go about operationalizing those policies. So that becomes a problem. So then in the program itself, we also talk about reviewing the policy, coming up with a policy brief, helping the government make those changes that are required. So essentially trying to strengthen what is already being done, which we call advocacy, but is not really preferred by donors and some governments. So obviously, whatever it takes, we recommend that to cohesively work on this element. So the same is true for all sectors, be it health, be it education, be it employment, you name it, the approach has to be the same, because there is no single factor which you can isolate and say, if I can fix this, the issue of disenfranchisement or disempowerment would be taken care of. So it's a holistic effort that we need to talk about. And that's what we try and do through the programs, and that's exactly what I try and evaluate in the program. So I make sure that all this is part of their results-based framework or log frame or whatever they follow, so that they commit to that change first. Initially, it was a challenge because when you would look for funds for an organization and then you would start putting together a proposal, you'd realize that it's not a mandate for the donor, it's not a priority for the donor. So trying to argue how this is going to help change the situation on the ground and why money needs to be invested to work on this particular aspect as well used to be a challenge. Now it's not that bad. I mean, we all now understand what is the empowerment framework, how does women's empowerment get measured, and therefore we need to talk about agency, self-efficacy, we need to talk about decision-making, we need to talk about ownership, all these aspects are there. So now more and more donors are aware of it. But when we started off, 20 years ago, it wasn't the case. But I'm happy to be around in these times where things have improved to a point where you have so much to look forward to. Having said that, there is still so much that we need to do to get, women to experience freedom for these real shackles and also, the assumed shackles. That we've grown into that environment for so long, we've internalized all those things, and we don't even realize when we do something, that actually reinforces the social norms or the culture or the practices that turn out to be negative for the other women. When we talk in households, when we say, oh, she works so hard, she barely sleeps, and she wakes up again in the morning, packs lunch for her husband, makes fresh breakfast for everybody, it's disempowering for the other women who are not able to do that. So it's like reinforcing a certain behavior. So when we do that, I guess we still need to work on that aspect, where media, when it talks about a certain representation of women and how she's behaving and what she wears and what she's assumed to be like, is also an aspect that we need to work on. So many things. I mean, at times I sort of feel that, there is still so much to be done. Why are women with open hair considered to be, too fast?
Absolutely.
And why are women with tied hair and a pallu considered to be, really docile, regardless of whether they actually are like that or not? But still, that's how it is seen. Or why men with oiled hair, properly groomed, are considered to come from wealthy families, and those with unruly hair are considered to be hoodlums, for that matter. Even film industry, straight hair was a hero, curly hair was always a villain. Madhurita would know that very well. So we're still trying to challenge all those things, but we do come across it still prevails. So anything else you want to ask me, I'll answer, but I'm keeping it short, like you said, 5 minutes.
Yeah. Manju, it is fascinating. You really managed to encapsulate the heart of the matter. And look, I opened my hair after you said that. It was tied up.